Man, I love Sonic Adventure 2 Battle. It's one of my favorite games of all time. It has great levels, a great story, and a killer soundtrack. But there is one thing I don't like in this game. Or should I say, there's one particular character I don't like. Omochao. Omochao acts as a guide to help you play the game. However, all of his tips are just completely useless. But there is something he's not so useless at, and that's killing enemies. Yeah, in this game you can pick up Omochao and carry him around and throw him into enemies to kill them. Now, I've never really done this a lot considering it's a slower kill method than just homing attacking or punching them, but this got me thinking, can we kill all the enemies per level in Sonic Adventure 2 Battle with Omochao only? Well, no. Why not? Because in the Tails and Eggman stages you can't pick him up since you're in a mech suit. But what about the other 4th character stages? Let's find out. The rules are simple. We have to kill every enemy in the Sonic, Shadow, Knuckles, and Rouge levels while only using Omochao. We have to throw them into the enemies to kill them. And yes, we will be counting the gold beetles as well. But we will not be counting the plane enemies that fly by you and drop bombs, since you can't really attack them. So let's go ahead and start off with the hero story. Our first level is City Escape. This level starts off with you snowboarding down the city. Thankfully there's no enemies in this section. Once we get off our board, we are introduced to our brand new weapon / helper, Omochao. Killing the enemies in this area is no problem. Later in this level, I did get to this part where the Chao key is, and for some reason, I couldn't pick him up. I ended up backtracking, came back, and then I could pick him back up again. Okay then? So far, this level definitely feels possible, up until this point. There are several flying beetles up way high in the air above a bottomless pit. Now, normally you would homing attack off of them, but we can't do that in this run. Now, even though killing all these guys looks impossible, it's actually not. If you use the bars to go to the top path, there's an Omochao you can use to snipe the first 2 beetles. And if you bring Omochao to the second row of rising platforms and stand behind the spring, you can actually hit both. Thankfully, Omochao respawns after you throw him off a cliff. The next section was pretty easy too. I did have to go back to kill this robot, but we did good here. There's no enemies during the truck part, and BAM! We beat the first level. Or did we? Because there's actually a bonus path that leads to a 1-up. But there's a beetle up there. We can't bring Omochao with us all the way up there since we can't grab this thing with Omochao in our hands. But you can only access this area once you play through the game and unlock Mystic Melody. So technically speaking, City Escape is impossible to kill all the enemies with Omochao unless you don't have the Mystic Melody. And you get that later in the game, so technically this one's kinda possible, but also not truly possible. After pampering Josh Jr. for a little bit, we head on into our next level, which is Wild Canyon. And we're playing as Knuckles this time, so we go ahead and move around to the stage and everything, and we can kill all the enemies in our sight. Now there is this one enemy on top of this platform that is a little tricky to get, but if you time your jumps on top of this rising platform and jump on top of the Sphinx head and throw it at just the right angle, you can kill him, making this level possible. Now up next is a Tails level, but like I said before, we will be skipping the Tails and Eggman levels, so let's go ahead and jump into the next level, shall we? Up next we have one of my favorite levels in the game, Metal Harbor, and this level is a lot of fun, but here's the thing, there's not a lot of Omochaos in this level here. Mainly at the beginning, there's a whole bunch of enemies you can fight, but there's not a single Omochao in sight. And I looked all around this entire area, could not find a single Omochao, so that basically makes this level impossible. Now there is this section right here too, where you would homing attack off of these, and there is an Omochao right here, but we can't go back to the previous area since we went off of a boost pad. And I even tried to see how many of these guys I could kill. Unfortunately, I could only get a few of them, but I did get a nice shot right there. Up next we have Green Forest, and right off the bat, it's impossible. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of enemies right here, and there's not a single Omochao in sight, so this one is impossible. Up next was Pumpkin Hill, and I was a little bit surprised of how many enemies I could actually kill in this level. Unfortunately, that all went down the hill because we had some enemies on top of this big pumpkin here, and I could not kill them because there wasn't a single Omochao in sight, and there was nothing around me at all. Plus there was this one at the top of the hill and everything, and it was too far for me out to jump, and it was too far for me to throw Omochao, so this level was unfortunately impossible. Next we had Aquatic Mines, and I'm happy to say this level was possible. Yeah, there's not really a lot of enemies in this level, period. Most of the enemies just tend to be ghosts, and even they are pretty easy to defeat with Omochao. Now, you do have to change the water level here and there, but overall, it's a very easy job to do, so thumbs up for that one. Now, up next would be a cart level, but we're going to skip those too. So, we have Pyramid Cave next, and I will say, this level I thought might have been possible, but unfortunately, I was wrong. Here's the thing, there's only one Omochao at the very beginning of the level, and I cannot bring it with me because there's one of these things here too. The things that bring you up and down, and Omochao cannot get on them since I can only have one thing in my hand at a time. So this level unfortunately is impossible. I did play through a little bit more of the level, see if I could kill any more enemies with it, but you know, it still did not go that way. Next up we have Death Chamber. Now unfortunately this one was also impossible. Mainly because there's a lot of areas in here that you just cannot access with Omochao in your hands. Plus there's only a few Omochaos in the actual entire base itself, so trying to actually kill any enemies in this entire area was impossible, unfortunately. So we unfortunately lost in the Death Chamber. Up next we have Meteor Hurt, and I gotta say, I forgot how giant this level truly is. Here's the thing, there's not a lot of enemies throughout this entire level. Most of the level is just going up and down, exploring throughout the space, and trying to avoid being hit by meteorites. And there's not a lot of Omochaos in sight, but there still are a few enemies throughout the level, and most of them are really tough to reach. And here's the thing, there's no Omochaos anywhere near any of the closest enemies, so unfortunately, this level is impossible. Up next, we have Crazy Gadget, and believe it or not, this level starts you off with your very own Omochao. That's pretty nice, actually. So it actually starts off pretty possible. You know, the enemies are within sight. There's an Omochao right there. It all looks good. Unfortunately, it doesn't last forever. There is another room with another Omochao I ended up getting. And this chaos was very annoying to deal with because he kept hitting me. Because Omochao kept bouncing out the walls. That's the thing about this entire run here. Omochao himself is such a pain to deal with. I mean, if I miss my target with any of the enemies with him, then he's going to be flying around for who knows how long, and I have to basically wait until he lands or try and attack him. Unfortunately, attacking him is very difficult to do, so it was pretty frustrating to try and re-grab Omochao. Sometimes he won't even grab him for some reason. Like I said, I don't know what that's about. But yeah, we had a little bit of a standstill right here with this Chaos enemy right here. After we turned everything upside down, basically he was stuck on the ceiling, and I could not, for the love of God, hit him with this Omochao. Now, I don't know if I'm wrong or anything. Maybe there is a way to hit him. I don't know, guys. It might be possible, but for me, it was impossible. So, we're going to say impossible, but prove me wrong. If you guys have been able to hit this guy with Omochao, let me know. Send me a video or a clip. Just let me know. But this one is impossible. Last up for the hero story, we had Final Rush, and this one wasn't even close to possible. Sure, you get an Omochao right at the very beginning, but here's the thing. You cannot grind with Omochao, and that sucks really badly, so that pretty much ruins the entire thing. I tried looking for the enemies around here, but there wasn't a single Omochao anywhere near any of them, so this one unfortunately is impossible. But with that out of the way, let's go ahead and jump on into the Dark Story, shall we? Up first in the Dark Story, we have Dry Lagoon with Rouge the Bat. Now there's not a ton of enemies throughout this level, and there are a lot of Omochao, so this level is pretty easy to do actually. There's only 2 enemies on the bottom floor here, and there's like 5 or something at the top floor. But overall, there's a lot of Omochaos in the area, so beating all the enemies in this area with Omochao was indeed possible. Up next, we have Radical Highway, and so far, this is one of the hardest ones I had to play. So here's the thing, there are a lot of enemies throughout this level, including those jets, but like I said, we're not going to be counting those for this run. So here's the thing, there's a lot of robots in like this beginning area right here, right? But there's no Omochao in sight. However, if you go ahead and roll underneath this thing, there's an Omochao right here. But here's the problem, trying to get back to where those enemies are. It's extremely difficult to do. You have to basically jump around the spinning thing right there and try and land back on the platform down there. And then you have to also avoid the robot shooting at you and avoid touching the spring. Because if you touch the spring, you will automatically lose Omochao, unfortunately. But yeah, after many attempts to try and make this jump, I finally did it. And then I bounced off the spring and everything was lost. And then I did it again and I finally managed to get over there and destroy the robots right there. But that wasn't even the end of it. And right after that, there's a whole other section with a whole bunch more robots to deal with. And we had to try and find another Omochao because there's none in sight there. So I actually took that Omochao that I got earlier and jumped around the spinning platform there and had to go through there and try and destroy the robots there. And then there was a whole nother section over here where there's a whole bunch of enemies that are flying in the air, and I had to hit them with Omochao. Unfortunately, Omochao can only go so far with your throw, and hitting the one at the very top of that platform was nearly impossible. I had to jump and throw Omochao onto the top platform, get up there really quickly, grab him again, throw him at the enemy, and hope that it actually would hit. And I tried this so many times, to the point I actually thought it might have been impossible. But after several attempts, I finally managed to beat the robot down. And then I went to the next area, and what do you know? There are a ton more robots, and there's even worse things happening here. The thing is, you cannot continue past this point with Omochao and kill all the enemies, because they have another one of these pull-up things, and you cannot grab that while you're holding Omochao. So unfortunately, after all the effort we went through throughout that entire level, this level, Radical Highway, is indeed impossible. Up next, we have Egg Quarters, and here's the thing. There's not a lot of Omochaos in this level either. And there's also these very high up platforms that have monkeys on them, and there's no Omochaos in sight. And we can't throw Omochao that high or that far, so unfortunately this level was also impossible. There are plenty of other enemies throughout here that we could kill with an Omochao, but trying to access different areas throughout this level was pretty tough actually. So yeah, this level was impossible. Next up we have Security Hall, and I will say this is another one of the hardest ones I've done so far. So here's the thing, a lot of the enemies throughout Security Hall are on top of really high platforms that I can't really just reach with Omochao. Sometimes I manage to actually hit them, but Omochao sometimes has like some RNG with how you throw him. Sometimes he'll lock on that enemy, sometimes he will not. So it's pretty luck based depending on how you're throwing Omochao and what height you're at. And here's the big section up here. This very top section was just so annoying to deal with. There's a lot of enemies throughout this entire area. There's lasers all over the place. But there's a lot of enemies on really high platforms, and trying to aim Omochao and trying to hit all those enemies on those high platforms was so aggravatingly hard. It took several attempts, so many failures, and so much of Omochao getting on my rear nerves until I finally managed to kill all the enemies right there. And then there's the other section where the lasers are going crazy and everything, and I had to be extra careful to not hit them because there's a fan underneath me blowing me and Omochao up and down throughout the air. So trying to actually hit the enemies around there was also really hard. But I managed to do that, meaning we killed all the enemies there except that gold beetle. Yeah, that gold beetle was a little tricky. Here's the thing, I don't think that gold beetle is actually possible. I think it's the one enemy that's actually impossible. I might be wrong or anything. If you guys say it's possible and can figure it out, let me know here. If you guys are sure it's possible or anything, just please give it a try. Send me a clip of you doing it or something. I'd love to know if it's really possible. But he just like appears and despawns so quickly, and I never had a chance to actually hit him, especially considering he's in such a bad spot. But overall, for Security Hall, yes and no. Yes, it is possible to kill all the enemies except for the gold beetle. I think, unless you guys can prove me wrong, I'd say it's impossible. Up next, we have White Jungle, and throughout this first section right here, there's actually no Omochao in sight unless you look really hard. If you go at the top platform, you actually will find an Omochao. But here's the thing, trying to actually get him to the enemies was actually really difficult to do. I had to basically take a leap of faith in order to make my way on down there and hope I land on a platform so I can kill the remainders of the enemies down there. Thankfully, after a few tries, I managed to do it and lived. But here's the thing, for some reason, I don't know why, I don't know if it was a glitch or something, but Omochao kept being thrown off the cliff, even though I was clearly pointing at the robot there, but he just would not lock on or anything. I just kept throwing him off the cliff by accident, and I wasn't even facing that way. So yeah, that section was possible, but then the next section comes up. Now there is an Omochao in this area too, but here's the thing, I had to make another really risky jump in order to make it to the next area to kill all the enemies in that area. I had to jump around this tree and around this platform here in order to make my way over to the next enemies. And I did manage to do it on my first try, believe it or not. But unfortunately, my run didn't last that much longer. there's one of these plant things that you grab on that slingshots you across the area, and it slingshot me to a whole bunch of robots, and there was not a single Omochao throughout that entire area. So unfortunately, this area was also impossible. Up next is Skyrail, and there's robots everywhere, but there's not a single Omochao in sight, no matter how hard I looked. So unfortunately, this one was also impossible. Up next is everyone's favorite level, Mad Space, and believe it or not, there's actually not a lot of enemies throughout this level. Most of this level is really gigantic and more exploration based, but there are a few enemies here and there. I can kill a few of them, but most of them are indeed impossible. Mainly the ones in the really high platforms that have nothing else around them except for space. So this one is unfortunately impossible as well. And last but not least, we have Final Chase with Shadow the Hedgehog. Now believe it or not, you actually get an Omochao right at the beginning of this level. But here's the thing, he's guarded very heavily by this chaos creature who does not want you to come anywhere near this Omochao. Sheesh, I guess he knew what I was planning to do to him, so he didn't want him to get hurt. Wow, I honestly kind of feel bad for him. You know, he's like acting like a parent and everything. Wow, it's like a mother and their child or something. Kind of feel bad. But not really, let's go ahead and kill it. So yeah, I managed to kill this chaos creature after several attempts to try and get through him. And then I managed to actually bring Omochao with me up throughout the gravity thing. And after that, I unfortunately hit a spring since I lost Omochao, since you can't hit one of these springs with Omochao and hold on to him at the same time. So unfortunately, throughout that area next, there was a lot of enemies and there was not a single Omochao anywhere near there. I looked up and down to find an Omochao. I could not. I tried to even see if I could bring that Omochao with me throughout a different escape route. Nothing worked, guys. So I'm sorry to say this, but this last level is indeed impossible too. So unfortunately the results weren't exactly the greatest. I only had 3 levels that are actually possible, 2 that might have been possible under certain circumstances, and 14 that were impossible. Yeah, so honestly, using Omochao as a weapon to kill all the enemies, not the best idea overall, but you know what? It was fun, and it felt good to take all my anger out on that little Chow for trying to teach me how to play the game over and over and over again. My gosh, that Chow annoyed me so many times with how many times he would talk when I hold on him for this challenge. And he was so annoying to catch whenever he was flying around because I couldn't grab him for some reason. But overall, this challenge was pretty fun, I'll say that. Even though it was a little bit frustrating, I still had a lot of fun.